One moment, I was weaving through the evening traffic, streetlights stretching like pale fingers across wet asphalt. The city hummed as it always did, tires on concrete, muffled horns, the constant low thrum of engines. But then my eyes closed for a fraction of a second. When they opened, the world had changed. Cars froze. All of them. A red sedan mid-lane, its brake lights blazing, headlights perfectly angled. A delivery truck half through a turn, wheels locked. Motorbikes paused in their lean. Each vehicle a suspended sculpture of motion impossibly precise. Not a single person in them moved. Not a foot tapping, not a hand adjusting a mirror. Nothing. I braked instinctively, my own tires squealing against the wet road. The sound felt hollow, echoing, as if it didn't belong to this frozen tableau. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to the steering wheel, willing it to be exhaustion, a trick of the twilight, anything rational. But the reflections in the side mirror told a different story. Cars stacked behind me, frozen identically, headlights forming sharp, crisscrossing beams that carved unnatural shadows onto the pavement. The air shimmered slightly around them, a subtle distortion, like heat haze, but there was no heat. I tried the horn. Nothing. My voice, when I shouted, sounded distant, swallowed in the thick, electric quiet. The memory came first as a whisper. A street I had known long ago, one I had never wanted to remember. I was 12, running late, racing my bicycle down wet asphalt after a fight with my father. He had yelled from the porch, my mother's voice drowned in the evening drizzle. I remember the skid of rubber against rain-slick pavement, the sudden, piercing terror as I realized I was moving too fast, the scrape of metal I hadn't seen, the scream swallowed in the night. I pressed my hands to the steering wheel. The memory hadn't been conscious, buried beneath years of commuting, traffic jams, the dull white noise of daily life. And now it clawed itself into my present. The traffic light ahead flickered, green, then yellow, then red, though none of the cars obeyed. The lights didn't change for them. Only me. Only my car moved as if I had slipped out of the rules of the world. The city stretched unnaturally around me. Buildings leaned ever so slightly toward the road, their glass facades reflecting not the city behind me but something warped, distorted. Another version of this same street paused mid-evening. I caught my reflection in a window. My eyes were wide, pale, and my hands shook visibly. I didn't recognize the person staring back. I tested the road, inching forward. The tires rolled over puddles that reflected headlights in fractal patterns, multiplied and bent. I glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. My own tail lights stretched back into infinity, duplicated dozens of times, as if the world behind me was being layered over itself. The rhythm of my pulse thumped in sync with the distant, vibrating hum of all the engines around me. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The frozen vehicles seemed to lean slightly toward me, as if they acknowledged my movement. The sidewalks were empty, no pedestrians, no stray animals. Just the buildings, the suspended cars, the muted reflection of my own motion. I tried to remember the last time I had been truly alone on a road like this, unbroken and straight. There was a highway in the countryside years ago, and my mother's voice on the radio, telling me to slow down, to take care, to look where I was going. I hadn't listened. I had been in a hurry, trying to outrun something I didn't name, trying to escape the tight, suffocating feeling of guilt that had always followed me. I had run from it then. I had thought it could be outrun. Now it was waiting, still, here, in these frozen headlights and reflected glass. A street sign loomed above, listing exits I had never seen. They were familiar and yet wrong. Elm Street, 2 kilometers. Willow Avenue, 3 kilometers. Riverbend Road, 1 kilometer. I could see my hometown listed in the distance, though I was miles away, in a city I didn't know. The familiar name throbbed with something I couldn't dismiss. My chest tightened. My grip on the wheel hurt. The radio sputtered, first static, then a voice. Not music, not news, just syllables, fragments. My name whispered, my childhood nickname, the sound of my mother's voice that I had long tried to forget. I turned it off, but the memory persisted in the air itself, in the vibration under my tires. I looked around again. The vehicles, every car, every truck, every bus, hung in impossible precision. Yet when I moved, the shadows shifted. The frozen headlights cast streaks that adjusted as I passed, bending reality subtly. The cars were no longer just frozen. They were markers, frames of moments, echoes of my own missteps replayed and recorded in the city itself. I tried to stop, to reverse, to turn off the highway, but the car obeyed only the path ahead. It was as if the road had a will, guiding me forward through this gallery of paused life. My reflection in the mirrors multiplied. I could see dozens of me, layered over the city, all of us racing toward the same inevitable reckoning. 19. A sedan in the left lane glimmered. I blinked. I remembered the scrape of a neighbor's car, the argument over a dent I had caused, the shame I had never admitted. The headlights of that frozen car flared against my own memory. I realized it wasn't punishment. It was notice. It was quiet instruction. 15. A motorbike leaned mid-turn, front wheel hovering above the asphalt. I thought I recognized the rider, a version of myself, reckless, inattentive, heedless. The air smelled faintly of rain and dust. I realized I could see the city not as it was, but as it remembered me. Every paused motion was a sentence, a reminder of errors deferred, of moments abandoned, of choices I had thought irrelevant. 10. My hometown sign appeared, not in the distance this time, not as a ghost on a city exit. It was here. The name burned pale green in my headlights. I didn't know how I could be so far from home and still see it. The cars didn't move. They waited, silently, for acknowledgement. I pressed the accelerator, heart hammering. The highway curved ahead. My own reflection in a glass facade leaned toward me as if the building itself watched. I realized then that my guilt, my memory, had never been my own. It had been preserved in the world around me, waiting, preserved in these frozen snapshots of life. And now it required something from me, recognition, witness, acceptance. 5. I passed the last set of lights. The road widened slightly. The city seemed to breathe as I drove, the frozen vehicles adjusting minutely, tilting, aligning themselves to my motion. The distortion in mirrors, reflections, asphalt, all receded slightly, as if acknowledging my compliance. 2. The road curved gently. A small plaza appeared ahead, familiar, though I hadn't seen it in decades. A tree I had climbed as a child, a bench where I had cried in secret. Everything in this tableau, the paused cars, the muted air, the suspended light, was a memorial. Not punishment, not threat, just memory laid bare, ordered around me. 1. I slowed. The city around me flattened, receding slightly, dissolving into mist. The last car, a taxi frozen mid-right turn, glimmered in my headlights. Its reflection in my side mirror was me, not as I was, but as I had been, reckless, careless, human. I blinked. The vehicle, the reflection, the city itself seemed to breathe one last time, and then the tableau dissolved. I was alone again, only the sound of my tires on wet asphalt, the hum of the engine, and the fading mist. The city stretched normal and empty, as though nothing had happened. Yet I knew the truth. I had passed through it, through the gallery of my own life. I had seen every suspended choice, every frozen consequence, and survived. Ahead, the highway dipped into shadow. The streetlights flickered softly, reflections stretching faintly on the wet asphalt. And I understood, finally, that the road had never been a route. It had been a reckoning. I drove on. The rumble strips whispered words when my tires rolled over them. At first, I thought it was the road itself. A trick of the asphalt, grooves in the highway humming through the tires and into the wheel. I'd driven this stretch countless times, the night air humming against the windshield, radio set low, eyes straining into the dark. But these whispers weren't incidental. They formed patterns, syllables that ticked along in time with the vibration beneath me. Stop. Turn. Look. I swallowed hard and eased off the accelerator. My headlights carved narrow slices through the night, illuminating the shoulders slick with condensation. Trees leaned in unnaturally close, branches twisting above the road, black veins against a sky that had no stars. The hum of the engine filled my ears, and over it, faintly, the rumble strips spelled, "You left them behind." The words twisted something in me. I pressed my palm to the wheel, tasting iron in my mouth. I remembered why I was on this highway at this hour, hours from home. The old house, the one my father had left to me after he died. I hadn't wanted it, not really. It smelled of varnish, old wood, memories I didn't want to inherit. But it was mine. I had driven out of the city, past the familiar, into the fog that always pooled over this rural stretch at night, thinking to claim it, or at least inspect it before dawn. The strips whispered again. "Come back." Too late. My pulse hammered. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing. Only the streaked reflection of my headlights, a tunnel of asphalt stretching behind me. I blinked. For a fraction of a second, a car appeared in the mirror, black, shiny, hood reflecting my own headlights. It wasn't moving, just hovering as if suspended in time. I jerked my head to the road ahead. The lane was empty, the road unbroken. When I looked back again, the reflection was gone. A gust of wind rattled the side mirrors. Rain began, thin and spitting, smearing my vision. The rumble strips whispered faster. "Don't forget." I gripped the wheel tighter. My stomach twisted. My mind reached for rationality. Tire pressure, vibration, sleep deprivation. But it slipped through my fingers. The words carried meaning. They carried accusation. I remembered the day clearly now, though I had never let myself think of it. The afternoon my mother had fallen in the kitchen. The phone call I had ignored because I was late for work. The sirens that came too late. The weight of her absence settling into the house like dust. I had driven that day, leaving behind a body I didn't touch, a life I didn't salvage, and the road had watched. Always watched. I blinked, and a shadow passed over the strip of road ahead. Not a cloud, not a tree, something fleeting, like a figure leaning into the lane, and gone before I could confirm it. My tires rumbled again, carrying the words, "See." The radio sputtered to life on its own. Static first, then a voice low and fractured, repeating, "It's your turn. It's your turn." My teeth clenched. The car's interior felt impossibly small, the air thick, pressing against my lungs. I reached to turn the radio off, but the hum of the rumble strips drowned it out, carrying phrases that were almost audible. "They are waiting. You always go last." I glanced down at the speedometer. I was going faster than I realized, faster than I wanted. The road ahead blurred under my headlights. The trees leaned closer, their trunks blackened and elongated. Shadows pooled unnaturally, and I realized the reflective strips on the guardrails were spelling words too, fleetingly. Alone. Always alone. I swallowed. My vision caught a flash on the shoulder, a figure. Small, hunched, pale in the intermittent reflection of my headlights. I blinked. It was gone. My stomach churned. I pressed harder on the brakes. Nothing. The car obeyed, slowing only incrementally, as if the asphalt resisted. Another whisper through the rumble strips. "Turn back." I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to escape, to deny the pull of memory, to ignore the accusation pressing in like a fist against my chest. But the strips vibrated faster, words vibrating through my bones. "Remember what you left." The road began to stretch unnaturally. Curves I knew as a child, curves I had driven for years, elongated into impossible sweeps. Headlights ahead flickered. Another car? No, nothing moved. And yet, for a heartbeat, I saw figures in the distance, crouched along the guardrails, impossibly still, faces turned toward me. Children? Adults? Couldn't tell. But the shapes were familiar. Faces I had ignored, glimpses of guilt made corporeal. A memory rose, unbidden and brutal. I had driven past the graveyard on the hill the night after my mother died. I had pressed the accelerator, thinking if I outran the street, the house, the the smell of antiseptic and sorrow. I could outrun my own culpability. I had never returned, never atoned. The highway had remembered for me. The rumble strips pulsed now with urgency. You must. The vibration moved up through the seat, the pedals into my chest. My own heartbeat matched it. The headlights flickered over the shapes at the edge of the road. One of them stepped forward. Not running, not moving naturally. Just there, framed in my lights, an empty shadow holding presence. I blinked, and it multiplied. Half a dozen figures, all waiting, all silent. Their features blurred, accusing. My hands shook. The steering wheel vibrated, echoing the whispers. I realized I had to face it. I had to drive into what I had left behind. The road bent, bending me along with it, curving toward a crest I didn't remember. A dip I had avoided my entire adult life. I swallowed, tightening the seatbelt as if it could tether me to sanity. Another whisper, you know the way. I drove. The figures receded slightly, but I could feel their eyes on me. The rumble strips carried words in the vibrations. You were last. You must be first. My stomach lurched. I remembered the accident on the old bridge, the night I had left my father alone after the argument, the way his hands had trembled when I walked away. I had abandoned him, and now the road demanded my reckoning. Ahead, the fog thickened. The highway ended in a crest, and I could just make out the outline of the house at the top of the hill, its windows dark, the silhouette of the trees sharp and skeletal. Every whispered word, every vibration, pointed there. I understood with sickening clarity. The strips were not guiding me, they were summoning me. I slowed to a crawl. The figures crouched at the shoulder stepped forward together, moving in impossible synchronization. Faces still blurred, yet unmistakably familiar. I recognized my mother's expression, my father's, even my own childhood self. All waiting, all silent, all judging. The rumble strips hummed a final cadence, a vibration I felt in my teeth and bones. Now, I pressed the brakes fully. The tires grumbled over the strips one last time. The vibration stopped. The figures were gone. The highway stretched empty, silent, as if nothing had ever existed. The house loomed ahead, dark and waiting, windows reflecting my headlights like eyes. I realized then that the whispers had never been warnings, they were instructions. They had been pulling me back to the place I had fled all my life. I stepped on the clutch and rolled forward slowly, headlights illuminating the door to the house. Creaked open as I approached. I didn't move to stop it. Inside, shadows waited. Inside, I knew was every moment I had abandoned, every life I had neglected, every choice I had buried. And as I crossed the threshold, the highway behind me vanished, silent, empty, leaving nothing but the imprint of memory on wet asphalt, the whisper of rubber, and the knowledge that some roads do not lead forward. They lead you home. The last thing I heard as I closed the door behind me was faint, almost tender, from the rumble strips under the tires still rolling just outside. We were always here.